Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm today's host, Coleman Hodges. Joining us today, he's the Olympic gold medalist photographer in our SwimSwam hearts. He was our man on the ground at the 2024 Paris Olympic Games, documenting not only swimming, but 10 plus other sports, all while representing SwimSwam and giving us the freshest photos in the swim sphere. We're talking to Jack Spitser.
What's going on?
This episode of the SwimSwam podcast is sponsored by Commit Swimming, SwimSwam's exclusive team management software partner. Since 2015, Commit has been providing coaches with swimming's leading workout management software. And now, Commit has team management software too. Commit wants to help you make the switch from Team Unify to a simpler, more powerful solution. Their onboarding and customer service team will walk you through every step of the way. Check them out at commitswimming.com to book your demo today. That's COMMIT swimming.com. Compared to every other podcast I do, this is going to be the chillest because you're my roommate. And for every swim meet we go to together, we bunk and we hang out and we goof off probably too much. But I'm excited you and I were texting a little bit back and forth during Paris, and we always just share our thoughts with each other about what's happening during big swim meets. But I'm excited to get your perspective on this whole Olympic Games. This is your second Olympic Games that you've covered for SwimSwam and attended. I've never been to one. I'm not jealous. It sounds crazy. It sounds like very congested and a very chaotic and a lot going on. But I'm guessing this was a very different experience than Tokyo. Take me through the beginning of traveling to Paris. You live in San Diego, so it's a long travel journey. And then once you get there, I know you had a snafu almost immediately once you got there with your hotel. But tell me about the first couple of days of heading to Paris.
Yeah, compared to Tokyo, it was about as different as you could possibly get. Tokyo travel had its own challenges with COVID and needing to get tested and everything. But the flight out there was fine. I had a direct flight from LA. It was about 12 hours, which is still a really long flight compared to most. And I was just happy. We booked that flight probably about a month ago. Whole year.
Because you almost didn't go. I forgot about that.
We were fully prepared for me not to be going. Mel went through a lot of stuff to try to make this happen. And then we both had to email a bunch of people. But until I think it was like June 28, it was right before trials, middle of June, is when we finally got confirmed. Which I ended up talking to the people in charge at the USOPC when I was in Paris, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it was a super easy switch." It was like, I don't know why there was all this issue. That was really fun to hear. But yeah, so I was just relieved to be going, and the fact that we got a flight and a hotel and everything in the first place is pretty good since there's, hundreds of thousands of people traveling there. But got there the day before the opening ceremony. I immediately had all of my gear, and I probably should have taken a cab from the airport to get to the hotel, but everybody's like, no, just take the train. So I took the train with all of my big suitcases and bags. It was like an hour and a half on 3 different trains, which was already pretty
you
hard.
I know from experience, you do not travel lightly. Tell me how many bags you had.
And that's traveling with you for meets that are like 4 or 5 days. This was 2.5 weeks. Luckily, I did not. So I had my big suitcase. You've seen it. It's about as big as a suitcase can get, with all of my clothes, bathroom stuff, everything. And then I have my Pelican case, which has my camera. Luckily, this time I did not have to pack like all of my camera gear. Sony had camera gear there ready for me, which is a pretty cool part about the Olympics, is all the different cameras. Companies have like giant headquarters that you can go get a bunch of gear. So that was good. So I only brought a backup camera and some lenses. Then I had my big backpack with my computer and snacks and all that, and then one more bag just with miscellaneous stuff. So I had 4 total bags. But the Pelican case and the suitcase are like 60 pounds each.
Yeah.
So I'm lugging them around. So right when I got to Paris off the train, my first stop was going to be the media center to pick up my credential. Turns out I went to the wrong media center. There's the MPC, which is the main press center for accredited media, and then there's a actual media center for anybody that's not accredited. So like you could have shown up. It's just a place for you to go hang out, watch the sports, people without a credential. So I went there, got a credential there, and I was like, this is not the right kind of credential. And they're like, oh, no, that's the MPC. That's the other side of the city. So that was a
Other
pretty
side of the city.
yeah. So then that was a pretty typical Jack going to the wrong place moment. So then I got in a cab it was like a 25-minute drive to the actual press center, stood in line for 2 hours there to get my actual credential. They have to check your passport and print it out and all that. So stood in that 2-hour line, only to at the very end of that line see our contact at the USOPC, who was able to get me. At first, I was just supposed to be able to shoot swimming, only swimming, specific, and then I had asked him if he could get it upgraded to an all access. It's called an EP credential. And he asked the IOC and they approved it. This was another thing that before Paris, what they had said was a big headache and impossible to get. But once we're on site, it was super easy. So I shouldn't have needed to stand in that line. I just went to a secret help desk and got the credential. But I wasn't complaining. I was super excited to have that all access, knowing that I had about 5 days after swimming ended to go to other venues. So I was really lucky to get that. So I got the credential. It's like 8 p.m. And then I went to what I thought was my hotel. Turns out I went to kind of like Marriott and Hilton out here in the US have like very similar names to a lot of hotels. I just went to the wrong version. It was down the street. It's like a half-mile walk. Still was annoying to have to walk again.
Yeah.
Got there, spent one night there. It ended up being a pretty bad hotel. Had a good amount of bed bugs. It smelled like mold. I asked them for more pillows, and I had like 2 tiny pillows on the bed. And the guy came up to my room to look. He's like, "You have pillows," and they didn't speak English very well. So that was a minor inconvenience. But the bed bugs and the mold smell were pretty bad. And I told Mel and Tiffany that, and they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna get you another hotel." So I ended up getting another one, luckily, because most were super sold out. But I got one that was a little bit closer to the pool, and it was 10 times nicer. So I ended up having a good lodging experience, but the first night was interesting. And then the next day was the opening ceremony, which is a high demand event, which certain events they deem high demand. So on top of your credential, you have to get an extra ticket from your designation, so the US OPC. So I had to fight for that until the last minute. They didn't want to give it to us because we were super late. But he had one last credential for it. So an hour before the ceremony, he was like, "All right, nobody else asked for it. It's all yours." And the ceremony was one of the craziest 6 hours of my life. It was pouring rain. I didn't check the weather. I was, running around. So I was in shorts and a t-shirt. Didn't really bring any protective gear for my camera. We get there. We had one position throughout the entire ceremony. So as they're going down the river, they basically had photo positions in each spot, and it was a random draw of where you were. I happened to be by the heavy metal section where they had headless Marie Antoinettes, and the heavy metal people were playing their rock band. I think their name was Gojira or something. I forget the name. Anyway, but it was pouring rain. It's about 4 hours of all the athletes going down the boats. And then at the very end, after the U.S. boat passed, we were able to run to try to get to shoot the flame, the cauldron lighting, which was that giant balloon that everyone's seen on Instagram. But their police presence was so heavy in all of Paris, there's 45,000 cops, that even us photographers with our credentials, we were supposed to be able to go, past them to get to this location, but we got turned around 3 different times. It ended up being 3.5 miles of walking when it should have been about 1. And we got there at the last second, still in the pouring rain, and sat in some dirt to shoot the lighting, which ended up being worth it. But in the moment, it was like, it's 1 a.m, just ran 4 miles in the, I'm definitely going to get sick being in this rain and cold. All
Yeah.
my gear is going to be wet. Yeah, it took like 4 days for all my stuff to finally dry.
Oh my God.
But it was worth it. Got the photos, and then swimming started the next day. And yeah, so that was my first 2 days in Paris. Was a lot of fun.
Holy crap. What,
But
did they have an opening ceremony in Tokyo?
yes, which I mistakenly left early. Um, I didn't really know much about the opening ceremony, so I left during the hours and hours of the athletes walking through, and I thought that was gonna be it. And it was like 100 degrees there, so I left. And the end of the ceremony was like the greatest photographic opportunity ever because they had a drone show of like 30,000 drones that made a globe right over the stadium and a bunch of fireworks that I watched as I was driving away in the bus. And my photo friends were like, "You're an idiot for leaving." So that's why I stuck it out for this ceremony and made sure I wasn't going to leave early no matter what.
Mhm.
But that was in one stadium sitting in one place. So it was a lot different.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So, what do you think? This was obviously the first time the opening ceremonies hadn't taken place in a stadium. It was on the river itself. What did you think of that aspect of it?
The consensus was that it was really good for TV, which I didn't watch, but that's what everybody was saying. But pretty much every photographer at the games that was shooting it was very frustrated because, normally in a stadium, you get to see everything, you get photos of everything. But we basically had like, you had one opportunity since
It's a
they did the
parade,
show to
right?
figure out, yeah, it's a parade. So you get
Yeah.
one section of the parade. We couldn't move. Um, Only a few photographers got to go in the Trocadero, which is where Celine Dion sang. That's where the Eiffel Tower is. That's where all the action was happening. So there's a lot of frustration. I luckily was on a good spot that I got some action. Some people only got to shoot the boats, which is kind of boring from a photographer's perspective. Um, but they're, you know, they're not creating this for us. They're making it for TV. So
Yeah.
it was a good experience. Something I'll remember.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Um,
Yeah.
I do you feel like it got you excited to be there, or I mean, that sounds like such a polarizing experience with the pouring rain and the 4 miles, but then you get some good shots, and like, did you feel energized by the time swimming had started?
Very. I wasn't complaining in the moment. All the other photographers were very upset, especially when we were on our hike to try to get to the
Mhm.
flame. Like people were pissed, complaining. I'm not there to shoot the ceremony. A lot of these people have specific assignments to get those photos, so I was just there having fun. So I wasn't complaining. Um, in terms of energy, yeah, I got super energized. It made me excited. I didn't want to just sit in my hotel room while this was happening. But in terms of energy levels throughout the rest of the meet in the week, I don't think it helped. I think it kind of tired me out a lot since I didn't go to bed till 2 a.m. And once you start at the Olympics, it doesn't stop. Um, so I would have been okay not going, but it definitely helped get the excitement up. I wanted to see LeBron James at the front of the boat, looking like George Washington with the flag.
Right.
So I'm glad that I stuck it out and did it.
Yeah. And then, swimming starts. It was, from our perspective, just, watching it on TV and not being there, day one was kind of like, oh, this isn't that fast. What's going on? Well, pool depth, blah, blah, blah. But then, I think, like most meets, as you kind of got into it, there was more and more excitement. Um, and then, by the end of the meet, we saw like 3 world records in 2 days. So it's like, yeah, it's plenty fast. I feel like this pool is fine. But take me through the first couple days. You go to bed at 2 or 3 a.m. After the opening ceremonies, and then I'm guessing did you go to prelims the first day?
Yeah, I went to prelims all but I think 2 or 3 days maybe. Um, but yeah, woke up at I think probably about 7 a.m. The meet started at 11, but like hotel or breakfast in the hotel ended at I think 10, and it was a pretty long trek to get over to the pool. Um, so up at like 7 a.m., fresh off a couple hours of sleep. Um, the first couple days was definitely kind of a lull in the energy levels. I
Yeah,
think the hype, especially being at trials. Trials was an incredible meet. So then having some swims what you think are going to be world records, super hype. It was a little bit, sad, especially as a big swimming fan.
yeah,
You could definitely feel the excitement kind of ripped away from the athletes, at least. But looking back, by the end of the meet, I think that whole talk of the pool being shallow and the pool being slow probably got to the athletes' heads because it did. Like you said, it eventually became fast pool. There was really fast times. So I think a mix of everybody saying the pool's slow, that's going to get to their heads. Plus, I'm sure people have heard the horror stories of the transportation for the athletes, the food supply. Like you can adapt to it after 5 or 6 days, but I think at the start, when you're an elite athlete used to having the perfect conditions, it's probably tough to go to having to sit on 100-degree buses for an hour and a half to get to the pool, and then not having proper food. Um, I think Elizabeth Beisel said that in sometimes the athletes only had like sardines and crackers to eat. So that probably all played into it. But um, I think Leon's first final was day 2 or 3. Once that happened, it's like this meets hype, like craziest atmosphere of all time. I thought Indy was going to be the top, but having 17,000 people who are all there for not one person, but one country, and like they were all in sync. Like I posted videos of, um, you know, every single stroke of Leon's breaststroke, um, being so in sync with it and cheering. I've never heard that before. You see like college teams do it. That's like 30 people, but having thousands, it was definitely gave everybody chills a couple times. Um, but yeah, the first couple days was definitely less. The expectations lowered a little bit until
Yeah.
until you got into the meet.
I mean, there were videos. I think you took one of the line to get in on that second day for Leon's 400 IM final. It seemed like the energy was very palpable. The fandom was obvious. What was it like, getting to capture a moment like that of we've been building to this for 2 or 3 years of Leon kind of being the chosen one, and
Yep.
he wins a world title, and then he breaks Phelps's world record, and it's like everyone's waiting for this moment of like Olympic gold in his home country, and you got to be a part. You got to document that history being made.
It was pretty cool seeing him literally in a span of 3 days go from a pretty hyped up swimmer, he's pretty good, one of the best in the world, to being like this global celebrity, having 1 point whatever million followers on Instagram, everybody screaming his name. Um, I went to the USA basketball game towards the end of the Olympics, and he was there, and the crowd there erupted when they showed him on the screen. Like that was definitely special to be a part of, because I wasn't around when Phelps was swimming, but I can kind of feel like I don't think he's going to be as good or as big as Phelps was, but you can kind of feel that being created within him. So that was really special to watch. He didn't, his reactions at his races were way bigger at like NCAA's from a photographer's perspective. I think that each of his first 3 events, he was trying to be cool and, job's not finished yet type. But finally, at the end of his 4th one, he let it loose. He put up the 4, and got the crowd into it. So it was special to be there for all of his races.
What was the craziest race that you got to shoot, or the craziest reaction, or what race stuck out in your mind?
In terms of reactions, the highlights, Kaylee McEwen after the 100 back. Before the meet, I didn't really know her story about her dad and everything. So that kind of, you could feel that coming out of her, which was she made a big fist, got up on the lane line. That was great. The greatest like race, the most chills that I got was during the men's mile. Just everything, the story leading up to for the U.S. men leading into that race was incredible. And then he took it out the whole time. Even the announcers, everybody are like, is he gonna hold on? He's gonna die. Like Sun Yang's last 100 was so fast. There's no way he gets the world record. And he just took it out, and it was incredible. So that was the best race for me to watch. The craziest was obviously the men's 100 free. I think that the hype on deck was not there at all. I think it was like pure shock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, everybody's like, what just happened? You're expecting this epic race, all the best sprinters in the world, Popovich, Chalmers, everybody. And then you're like, well, this dude's like a body length ahead of all of them. Like, there was really not much energy there, because I think everybody was in pure shock. But looking back, like, was a crazy swim.
It's a crazy swim, and so that's an interesting point, and we talked about this a little off camera, but like the 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 juxtaposition of watching it on TV or watching it on the broadcast versus being there actually in person. Like a lot of the, because like we freaked out when that 100 free happened, but a lot of times when you're there, it's like it's just another swim meet.
Yeah, that's something I was definitely trying to figure out how to put into words while I was there. It's like it's it doesn't feel different than most swim meets. Like it didn't feel any, apart from, the crowd with Leon and things like that. It felt the same as a typical, let's call it, trials, US Open. It's like you're a swim meet, there's people cheering, they're just in the water in front of you. Like it doesn't look like this incredible, amazing event. It's still just the same swimmers you've seen in person a million times doing 100 free or in the pool. It's a weird feeling to try to articulate. But then when you go back and watch, the broadcast and listen to Rowdy Gaines, and you see the movement of the automatic camera with them, and like the energy on TV is definitely better. Um, Obviously it's great to see things in person, but there's more. You can feel the hype more on watching it on TV. It's a weird thing to experience, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't in LA 2028 recommend everybody go, because it's going to be incredible.
I mean, that's going to be really crazy. But I think that's kind of the reason why I prefer, honestly, at this point, watching a swim meet on TV, because it's like I'm not going to get a better angle watching it in person than on TV.
I talked to a lot of people, and like Kyle Sockwell was one of them. He was there. There was very few like good seats in the arena. All of the TV boards that were on the finish end of the pool, when they got to the flags, they would all shut off because they wanted the swimmers to look the other end of the pool at that board, which is like a million miles away, which I think, talked to a few other people, I think that affected the reactions because people had to squint. You couldn't really tell who won, right. But they turned those off so that they looked towards the TVs. So as a fan, they didn't know who won for the most part, for at least 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So, and some of them were like super tucked far away where you can barely see anything. It's like, unless you had the front row on the side, the good seats, it was actually, there's a lot of people complaining, like, we spent this much money to barely be able to see. Some people were watching on their phones while it was happening.
What? That's nuts.
So that's the stuff people don't tell you. But yeah, it's definitely better to watch on TV unless you have a pretty premium seat.
Yeah. And just in terms of doing your job, how did this compare to other swim meets in terms of the shots you were able to get? It seemed like you had a better position at this meet than you did in Tokyo. Is that
exactly the same as Tokyo?
Okay.
Our access was great. There's no complaints there. The whole time I was like, I am sitting in front row at this place that people are spending thousands of dollars to be at, and I'm here to work, it was crazy. But yeah. There's a giant photo position on basically from 25 meters to 50 meters on the side, and then there's a smaller one on the finish end of the pool. And so you basically they picked who got to go where. You could make requests, but with a big lens, there was no issues. Sometimes officials would get in the way, or the camera would get in the way. Like, you had to position yourself decently, but the access was fine. But it's the exact same as it was in Tokyo. I'm probably a little bit better at my job in the last 3 years. That might be why it looks a little bit better. They had about 5 blue vests, which is people that could go on deck, and that's for the companies that pay a lot, like Getty, that pay a lot of money. They get that access. I didn't really think it was that much better because they really only got to go behind the blocks. Where their access was better was for the podium, which I don't really need to get that close for those. So I have no complaints. It was better access than most USA swimming meets, because there are so many photographers that they plan for it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that seems good. And then just in terms of shooting for other sports, you got to shoot for 10 plus other sports besides swimming. What was that like, and how do you navigate photographing, things that aren't in a pool?
Yeah, I'm pretty new. Well, I've shot other sports before, but obviously my expertise is in swimming. So it was a lot of fun experimentation for me. In terms of access, it's pretty crazy how like the access was almost better for other sports because swimming is the most popular, watched, most covered sport at the Olympics.
Yeah.
So at Summit, like when I went to fencing, there was like 3 or 4 photographers there, and I got to just go plop myself 5 feet from where they're fencing, and it was basically just a playground for a photographer. Um, the only one that
Nice.
kind of compared was men's basketball. That one, I still got 3 rows back from the court, which is like pretty crazy when it's the LeBron and everybody. Um, but there was never a time when I was like struggling to get a spot. I went to BMX. That's an outdoor venue. It was super hot, and they didn't really have any photo positions, so I was just sitting on a super hot metal like deck that they had set up, um, which was rough. But it was it was still a good position.
I didn't
Um,
even know they had BMX in the
yeah,
Olympics.
BMX biking, which was pretty cool to watch them flying around on their bikes. They had that. They had skateboarding. The tennis. I went to tennis and saw Nadal and Djokovic, who are the two like greatest of all time tennis players. And it was the last time they were ever going to play, and that was like incredible because they have this like dugout under the court where you can look upwards, and they're standing right there. So that was some really cool photos. Um, but yeah, it was fun to not have expectations at any of these and just go get whatever I think looks good and practice. Um, Being around people who like have to get the money shot, kind of like me at a swim meet.
Mhm.
The pressure was very low, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Definitely learned a lot.
Um, how many hours of sleep you getting a night?
First week, 3, about 3, probably, but 2.5 to 4, so somewhere in the 3 to 3.5 range. Um, and then on the very last day of swimming, it all caught up to me. I got quite sick.
Mhm.
It probably was COVID because everybody at the pool had it, and a lot of different swimmers were testing positive.
Yeah.
I never got tested, but I think it was COVID and a mix of just not sleeping and probably wasn't drinking enough, and because it was super humid there, so everybody was sweating.
Oof.
Um,
Yeah.
so got really sick. Then I slept, I think 7 hours that night. I basically slept like 6 to 8 hours for the next 3 nights. Recovered, then had about 3 days to run wild again, and now I still have a little bit of a cough, but mostly recovered.
So tell me about just kind of the workflow of a typical day, because again, you're not sleeping much. I'm sure it's long work hours.
Yeah. Typical day was waking up somewhere in the like 7 to 8 o'clock range. My hotel had pretty good breakfast, a lot of croissants. I went to Paris to eat croissants. That was my thing. Um, so it was pretty much like 3 croissants every morning, a little bit of yogurt. Um,
Love it.
got to get the dairy in there.
Mhm.
Um, and then I would head to whatever venue I was going to. For the most part, it was swimming, so I'd head to the pool. They have lockers at every venue, so I would drop off my backpack and extra stuff in a locker. I was getting there about an hour and a half early every session to try to get a good spot. It's pretty much first come first serve once you know what section you're in.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so I would get there, stake out a good spot. Um, Usually that range was when I would do most of my editing and work from the past day. So I'd sit in the photo position, get some edits done. You could have your computer, like you basically had a whole, wasn't a desk setup, but enough room to have, you could have your computer here, cameras here. There was, we weren't all completely packed and squished.
Nice.
So get some work done. Batteries were usually not charged enough, so I charged my batteries during that time. Well, that's what I didn't know. I had never been to Europe before. I didn't know that their outlets were different. So I showed up
This was
first
your
day.
first time to Europe?
Yeah. And so I didn't know
Oh.
the outlets were different. So I had to like go find a way to buy the adapters.
Mhm.
So I only had 2, so I couldn't charge that much at once. Um, yeah, get all my stuff charged, shoot the event. Right after prelims, spend about a half hour getting the best, 10 to 20 photos out. Um, and then I didn't really go back to the hotel during the day much. A couple days I think I went and took a nap, but for the most part I would try to squeeze in a third sport or event in halfway through. So I would look up the schedule and see what was being, what was happening, and find the train or the bus or an Uber to get to that venue, shoot it really quick at, let's say 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Most venues didn't have food, so we had to go find a place to get food, which was pretty frustrating. And most places in Paris aren't quick. It's like sit down restaurants and cafes. So that was tough to eat enough. And then I'd be back to the pool by about 5:30 or 6. The meet starts at 8:30. For finals, I could try to get there 2 hours before to get a good spot, because finals was obviously more popular. And then do the same thing, get some edits done from the morning before the session, shoot the whole session, spend about a half hour to an hour getting the best photos. And then the sessions were ending at about 11 o'clock. So I was leaving the venue about 12, spend about an hour to get back to the hotel, home at 1 o'clock. Then I would edit the rest of the photos, because I would only do the best ones right after the session. So then I'd spend another hour or so getting the rest up for photo vaults and things like that. And then, I was pretty much going to bed about 3:30 each morning, up at 7 o'clock, do it all over again. One of the days I went to 4 sports. That was 2 days before I got sick, probably what led to me getting sick. But I went to, what did I do? I went to fencing, then I went to swimming, then I went to BMX, then I went to tennis, and then swimming again. So it was 5 places.
Sessions,
swimming. Yeah, 5 sessions.
Wow.
Which, that was fun. I did a little day in the life on my Instagram, and fellow photographer people were like, "You're gonna burn out, dude. Slow down. You got another week to do." I was like, "No, I can do this." And then I had to take a break when I got sick. But yeah, that was the typical workflow. Most of the venues were very far apart. I know Southern California, and I know where all the venues are for 28, and so it makes sense. It's like, damn, that's going to be a long way. But I didn't know Paris was that big. Most venues were actually outside of the actual city of Paris, including the pool. So it was pretty hard to go to a bunch of different places all at once, because it was pretty spread out all around.
Yeah. Sounds terrible. Just sounds
definitely
terrible.
Something you wouldn't like. Going a lot of driving around.
A lot of driving. Yeah. Wow. I mean, the bottom line is it's a lot of work, no matter where you're doing it.
It was not it's definitely the same as Tokyo. It's the hardest event to go and work at, because of the both the nonstop aspect of it, but also then there's the pressure of trying to do as much as I possibly can. So it's you don't really want to take a break, because you could sleep when you're dead, kind of thing, because you're here at the Olympics.
Right.
But that can catch up to you at the end. But
yeah. I've been sick. I don't think as sick as you have, but I've gotten sick on international trips before. I've certainly had health issues come up. I mean, I feel like it's a little scarier when you're not at home or when you're on the road, but it also in a completely different country. You're like, oh no, I have to take care of myself and everything. I'm in a strange land.
Yeah. There was about half of a day or half of a night when I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to die almost, which I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it was the most sick I've been in a very long time. And the thought crossed a little bit. It was like, damn, what if I actually was in an emergency and I wouldn't know what to do. I don't know is there a European 911? People are probably going to school me on that, but I probably should have done that research, but it's definitely more humbling being completely alone and on your own for it. I went to a pharmacy and basically tried my best to tell them what was going on, throat, cough, everything. So they gave me a pretty good amount of meds to take, which was good, including these cough drops that I'm continuing to use because they are great. But yeah, it's definitely different and makes you a lot more independent and have to fend for yourself. You don't have anyone taking care of you. So that was unique for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, especially, I kind of forgot the aspect of you're traveling by yourself. no one else there. It's like you can call people, but it's a lot different when you're a one-man team
Yep.
and you're having to, manage all of your responsibilities on top of your health.
Yeah, I was lucky that it happened at the end of swimming. Swimming is what I was there to do. I couldn't really miss a session.
Yeah.
Luckily, it was like right when swimming ended, and I could take a day off, which was nice. But made it through, got healed. Still was going out even when I wasn't feeling good because I didn't want to waste any time. The toughest venue to get to was beach volleyball, which is where the Eiffel Tower was.
Oh, okay.
It's right in the middle of the city, so roads are all closed. So you can't really like get a cab or an Uber there. They drop you off like a mile out, but the perimeter around the entire Eiffel Tower area was like a 1 mile radius all around, and I got dropped off in the complete opposite direction. So I asked someone, "Where's the media entrance?" And they're like, "Oh, it's right over there." Walked a mile to the other side to where the media entrance was, and once you got in, then it was another mile walk all the way to the stadium.
Oh
And
God.
that was the day that I was like most dead, but I needed to get the shot of the Eiffel Tower that everybody's seen from that venue. Um, so that was a sluggish walk, and I thought I was going to pass out while I was walking, sweating everything out. But it was worth it. Got the shot.
got the
Passed out when I got home.
got the shot. Man, that's crazy. What are your personal highlights from the trip? You were there for 2 weeks plus.
I think the highlights from swimming, the men's relay, on that was the first night. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was a great way to start the meet. Hunter Armstrong with his crazy split, that was
Yeah.
awesome. The men's mile, outside of swimming, the tennis match that I saw. I love tennis, and that was great to see. Table tennis. My house, all my roommates were big ping pong guys, so I made sure to get out to table tennis, and it did not disappoint. It's crazy. They play on a tiny table, and they just whack that thing all around. And
What what match did you see?
it was the team. It was the doubles, so the teams, and it was the quarterfinal. So it was France versus Brazil, and one of the guys on France, his name's LeBron, which he kind of went viral for being like LeBron. Everybody wanted a matchup between LeBron and LeBron, and he was, I think, the number 3 best in the world, and so that's what I got to see. But the finals was after I left, so that was awesome. Men's basketball, massive. I wanted to see Steph and LeBron, and
Yeah.
KD and all them. That was a highlight. I didn't. I went. I planned to go to the quarterfinal and the semifinal, but I went to the quarterfinal and I was like, semifinal, they're probably going to blow them out. It's probably not going to be that like anything different. So I went to track and field that night, which was the biggest mistake of my whole life because the semifinal was the greatest basketball game of all time. Come back against Serbia, and in the quarterfinal, none of them really reacted. LeBron barely played because he got hit in the eye. So I'm pretty bummed I didn't go to that semifinal game, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. All good. But yeah, those were some of the highlights. I had half of a day to be a tourist where I walked like around the Louvre and everything. That was fun. Biggest highlight that I actually didn't mention that I think was the number 1 highlight was the end of the men's triathlon, which was the one that got delayed a day because of the river, which I don't really understand. If a river can get that clean from one day to the next, I don't know. But they
Right.
delayed it a day, and then the next day it happened to be clean. But the guys swam in it. I got them jumping into the Seine for the first time. And then at the finish line of the triathlon, every single one of them puked. Like, I think there was probably 30 of them, at least 20 to 25. Like, we're at the finish line, throwing up. And one guy just happened to be perfectly placed on the Olympic rings, like in the Paris 2024, which is my favorite photo of the whole meet because he's just throwing up on it. And a lot of them did say it was specifically because, like, the river. It's obviously the end of a triathlon in humidity and the heat, so they were exerting themselves for a long time. But I think part of it was because of swimming in the E. coli infested river. But that was wild to see. Just like it was like a battlefield. Like they were all just dead at the finish line, and there's 10 different people to shoot at every minute that were just like, passed out at the end. That was an interesting scene to see.
That's crazy to have that many people puking.
Oh, it was wild.
I mean, like, I can't believe they did it. And then I can't believe they had open water there too. Like, it's whatever. It's
What
done
would have
now,
been the
so.
alternative though? Like I agree, but
Oh, I thought they had another venue. I think we reported that they had like a plan B venue.
I thought the plan B was just to make it a biathlon with no swimming. Which
maybe for that. I think they had another open water venue though.
I don't know why they didn't just do that.
But
I think it was a pride thing for France. I think they spent $1 billion cleaning it. They wanted to say it happened.
Right. Even though everyone got sick.
Yeah. And then more people got sick during the 10K.
Yeah, that is really wild. To be able to to document everyone getting sick.
Yeah, that was, I think, the third or fourth day. And I had to wake up at like 6 a.m. to go get that, but it was very worth it. That was fun to see.
Dang. That's cool. That's really cool. So, just kind of your parting thoughts, or now that you're back home, what do you have takeaways from the event, or that you'll use moving forward with photographing big events like this?
I think it reinforced how much I actually love photography and doing what I do. Just being there and able to document and capture that, everything that I did. It's kind of a reminder that, I'm doing the right thing. Because sometimes, shooting the same stuff over and over again can get a little bit monotonous, but it was a nice refresh, I guess, for my photography career. I learned a lot, I think, about how to pace myself at a big event. Next time I probably will plan it out a little bit more, not try to do everything in the first 4 or 5 days. And I really just want to go and shoot as many other sports and things as I possibly can, to keep getting better, because I like expanding outside of just swimming. I think it helps me see new perspectives and angles. And I'm really excited for 4 years from now. I know that's crazy to already be thinking about, but there is a little bit of that kind of lull or post-Olympic, I don't want to call it depression, but like people, especially the athletes, talk about it. You have this thing that you're looking forward to and working for so long, and once it's over, it's kind of like, what do you do now? So I felt that a little bit, and I think I will for a while, because I already miss it, and it was a lot of fun. But greatest experience, like we said at the beginning, I wasn't even supposed to go until a month before, so the fact that I was there at all was awesome, and I'll remember it forever.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.